Max Verstappen is poised to clinch the Drivers' Championship at the upcoming Qatar Grand Prix. His path to victory requires just 3 points in the sprint race. As the racing community gears up for the next season, there is a growing focus on who can challenge the dominance of Red Bull, with many eyes turning toward Mercedes. Lewis Hamilton has asserted that a masterpiece will be instrumental in Mercedes' efforts. However, Toto Wolff has expressed his desire to discard this masterpiece. The questions surrounding Mercedes' plans for 2024 and the right approach are now in the spotlight. Following a lackluster performance at the Japanese Grand Prix, where Mercedes found itself with only the fourth fastest car, the team acknowledges the considerable gap to Red Bull. Hamilton, advocating for a complete overhaul of their conceptual approach, emphasizes the need to acknowledge the significant gap that must be closed before the 2024 season commences. Hamilton stated to Sky Sports, "I have no idea where the car is going to be next year, but we're a long, long way away. We've got to hope for the next 6 months to be the greatest 6 months of development that we've ever had, to close that gap and to be competitive." The opening round of the 2024 season is just around 5 months away. If Hamilton's assessment is accurate, Mercedes needs to be 1 month into a transformative development phase to challenge Red Bull next year, given the substantial gap to the front. He cites Mclare as an example of a team that successfully altered its car approach to become Red Bull's closest rival, emphasizing the potential for his team to make a similar leap. Hamilton states, "The evidence is there at Mclare, and we can't ignore that. To look at what they've done and go in that direction, that is the direction. But I truly believe my team can do it." He expresses faith in Mercedes' capabilities while acknowledging that decisions made in this crucial period are vital to their trajectory. Nevertheless, closing the gap to Red Bull is a daunting task for Mercedes, and the team's messaging appears inconsistent, eroding confidence. Achieving the greatest 6 months of development in their history requires everyone to work harmoniously, which currently seems elusive. Moreover, Mercedes has yet to demonstrate strong development under the existing regulations, casting further doubt on their prospects. Mercedes seems to have made some progress in terms of competitiveness relative to the rest of the field, and the available data supports this claim to some extent, although the improvement isn't particularly convincing. It appears that Mercedes is on track to finish this season without a single win, marking the second such occurrence in its history. However, despite this, there are positive remarks about the car. One such statement comes from Lewis Hamilton, who affirmed, "Well, we won't discard the car, of course. These cars are still remarkable pieces of engineering, even if they aren't the fastest on the planet." He emphasized the substantial effort contributed by 2,000 individuals in building these machines, and acknowledged their significance in the team's history and learning process. Hamilton also highlighted the intention to preserve the positive aspects of the car. It is clear that Lewis Hamilton wants to convey a positive perspective, which is a reasonable stance to adopt regarding a Formula One car. These cars are indeed engineering marvels, including the W14 model. As someone familiar with Lewis Hamilton's subreddit, I'm aware of the strong support he receives from his fans, even for this particular car. Notably, the car has secured a second-place position in the Constructors' Championship over the course of the season. Throughout the season, it has been the second fastest car on the grid, although it has not always appeared to be so. Had Aston Martin maintained their early season form, they might have overtaken Mercedes in the standings. Similarly, if Mclaren had begun the season with their current car, they could have posed a significant challenge for the second spot. The apparent discrepancy arises from conflicting statements made by team members. Hamilton's sentiment differs from that of his boss, Toto Wolff, who stated just a week ago, "We will discard this car when it becomes truly fast and embark on a new journey." These contradictory statements raise questions about the team's unity of purpose. In this case, however, Hamilton's perspective aligns more closely with the facts. The technical regulations for the next season will remain unchanged, and any knowledge and advantages gained from the current car will carry over to the next season's W15. Given this context, Mercedes should refrain from discarding a car that Hamilton has described as a masterpiece. Instead, they should focus on building upon their existing foundation. However, the challenge lies in Mercedes' ability to develop a car effectively under the current regulations. While there has been extensive discussion about Mercedes' shift away from the zero-pod concept and their upgrades to the current car, the on-track results haven't always matched the positive rhetoric. Therefore, a closer examination was undertaken by analyzing Mercedes' performance gap to the first-place finisher in each race to determine whether they were genuinely closing in on race victories. Ultimately, race wins, not second-place finishes, are what secure championship titles. I examined the time gap between Mercedes' highest finishing car and the first-place finisher in each race during the 2022 and 2023 seasons. The x-axis represents the race number, and the y-axis shows Mercedes' gap to first place in second position. In the graph, the 2022 season is represented in blue, while the 2023 season is depicted in red. Each dot corresponds to a race, and the lines represent a moving average trendline based on data from the previous 4 races throughout the season. In 2022, Mercedes initially lagged just under 30 seconds behind the race leader. However, as the season progressed, they managed to reduce the gap to the mid-teens. This improvement was partly attributed to Red Bull discontinuing upgrades after securing both titles, and George Russell's victory in Brazil. In 2023, Mercedes started from a similar position, although the Australian Grand Prix finish behind the safety car would have considerably worsened their gap to the front. Monaco, which saw the introduction of new sidepods for Mercedes, marked the 6th race of the season and brought a modest improvement. However, since then, they regressed to a gap of around 30 seconds, despite claims of improvement from the media and Mercedes themselves. This contradicts the data. Mercedes is actually performing worse this season than they did with the 0 pods in the previous season. Red Bull is outpacing Mercedes in development. To challenge for race wins, Mercedes not only needs to find roughly half a second per lap in race trim but also counter the gains Red Bull will make during the off-season. Considering Mercedes' historical development rate during the Grand Effect era, there is insufficient evidence to suggest they can bridge this gap. Observers in the sport are beginning to share this realization. Former Jordan designer Gary Anderson, writing for The Telegraph, expressed little hope for Mercedes off-season, suggesting they are unlikely to achieve miraculous development over the winter. He anticipates Mercedes to be, at best, the 4th fastest team at the start of the next year, given the current rate of progress among the top 5 teams. Anthony Davidson, speaking on the Sky Sports F1 podcast, discussed Lewis Hamilton's call for their greatest 6 months of development ever. He emphasized the challenge Mercedes faces, as they must work hard to catch up and also anticipate the significant gains Red Bull will make in the next season. Mercedes essentially needs to do double the work of Red Bull. Despite Hamilton's assertion that Mercedes can learn from the W14 masterpiece, the question remains whether his team can genuinely outwork Red Bull to close the gap. If Mercedes hopes to compete for race wins in the upcoming season, they must find, at the very least, half a second per lap of race pace. Unless they achieve a miraculous turnaround at their Brackley headquarters in the next 5 months, this seems unlikely. What are your thoughts on Mercedes' prospects for the next season? Were you surprised by the limited progress they've made this year?
I'm eager to hear your thoughts and perspectives. Please share them in the comments section below. Also, remember to subscribe to the channel for notifications on our future uploads, ensuring you stay informed about the developments in the 2023 Formula One season.